For 2 years, my manager took credit for work he barely understood. Then, in front of the CEO, he was asked one simple question about a project with his name all over it. I could have saved him. One last time. I smiled and said nothing. I worked in IT for a mid-sized company, and for a long time, I believed good work spoke for itself. I wasn't the loudest person in the room. I wasn't good at office politics, but I was reliable. If a system broke, I fixed it. If a problem appeared that nobody wanted to touch, it ended up on my desk. For a while, that felt like enough.
Then Daniel became my manager. Daniel wasn't lazy. That's important. Lazy people are easy to spot. Daniel worked hard at exactly one thing: being visible. He knew which meetings mattered. He knew which executives needed updates. He knew when to speak and when to nod thoughtfully. And whenever praise was being handed out, Daniel was somehow standing closest to it. The first time it happened, I ignored it. I built a reporting system that saved hours of manual work every week, and Daniel presented it to leadership, using the word "we" just often enough that nobody questioned it. The second time, I noticed.
The third time, I started keeping count. Months turned into years. Every project followed the same pattern. I did the work. Daniel did the presentations. The directors congratulated him, and I went back to my desk. I kept telling myself someone would notice eventually, but work doesn't speak for itself. People speak for it, and Daniel had become its voice. The moment that finally stuck with me happened at the annual company meeting. Our department won an award for a project that had eaten 6 weekends of my life. I sat 3 rows from the back, while Daniel walked onto the stage and thanked his team for supporting his vision. The room applauded, and I remember realizing that nobody in that room even knew my name. That should have made me angry. Instead, it made me tired. Then came the migration project. The company planned to replace several aging systems with a single platform. Done right, it would save millions. Done wrong, the damage would reach every department. Leadership wanted someone experienced overseeing it. Naturally, Daniel volunteered. A few days later, I learned he had committed to deadlines based on numbers I'd mentioned casually during a preliminary review. Numbers that were never meant to be promises. I hadn't been invited to the meeting where they became promises. The next morning, Daniel dropped a folder on my desk. "We got approval," he said. I opened it and saw the timeline. It was aggressive, dangerously aggressive. I pointed out the risks. He smiled. "You'll figure it out." And then he added the sentence I'd heard 100 times before. "I'll handle the communication." Normally, I would have argued. Normally, I would have burned nights and weekends, making his impossible deadline possible. But something was different this time. For the first time, Daniel had attached his reputation to something he couldn't personally explain. Not because he trusted me, because he assumed I'd save him. Again, that was the moment I made a decision. I would do my job. Exactly my job. Nothing less and nothing more. I built every component assigned to me. I met every deadline. I answered every question. But I stopped doing the invisible work that had protected Daniel for years. When he forgot to send updates, I didn't remind him. When executives wanted clarification, I answered through proper channels instead of quietly feeding him talking points. And I documented everything. Every spec, every recommendation, every decision made over my objection. Because for the first time, I realized I might need a record of where responsibility. For months, the project looked fine from the outside. Then the cracks appeared. A director asked Daniel a technical question in a status meeting. He answered confidently. The answer was wrong. A week later, an executive asked about deployment sequencing.
Wrong again. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to make people ask follow-up questions. And once people start asking follow-up questions, they start comparing answers.
Then launch day arrived. The migration went smoothly for about 40 minutes. Then a critical configuration failed. The system slowed, transactions backed up. Within an hour, departments across the company were affected. The outage lasted 6 hours. And the configuration responsible wasn't one of mine. Weeks earlier, Daniel had personally overridden a recommendation because he believed it would speed things up. I had documented my concerns in writing. At the time, nobody thought it would matter. Now, it was the only thing that mattered.
Leadership wanted answers. Daniel gave explanations, then revised explanations, then entirely new ones. Different people were hearing different stories, and the more he talked, the more suspicious everyone became. Finally, the CEO called a meeting. Not the usual kind, the serious kind. She listened for 20 minutes without a single reaction. Just questions, simple ones, that kept getting harder to answer. Then she looked around the table and asked the last one, slowly, clearly,
who actually did the work on this project. The room went silent, and one by one, the heads started turning. Not toward Daniel, toward me. I didn't accuse him. I didn't argue. I didn't even look at him. I opened my laptop and walked him through it. The timeline, the specifications, the recommendations, the overrides. Every document dated, every decision recorded. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody needed to. 2 years of history, absorbed in about 4 minutes. The truth hadn't suddenly appeared. It had been there the whole time. People were finally looking at it.
Daniel wasn't fired. Real life is quieter than that. The invitations to important meetings thinned out. Major projects stopped landing on his desk. People who used to accept his answers started verifying them. Trust left the room before he did. 3 months later, a leadership position opened. And this time, when people discussed who actually understood the systems, who had been doing the work all along, my name came up. A lot. Eventually, it ended up on the office door Daniel used to walk through. I learned something I'll never forget. Sometimes justice isn't exposing someone. Sometimes it's simply stopping yourself from protecting them. Because the day I stopped covering for Daniel was the day everyone finally saw him clearly.
If you felt that ending was deserved, there's a new story of quiet justice every Tuesday and Friday. Subscribe so the algorithm actually shows it to you. And tell me in the comments, should I have stepped in and saved Daniel one last time? Or was it time he faced the consequences himself?